Alright, some of you have been with me since before I started talking about politics, when we were all researching something else. And just as a coincidence, it was one of the first communities to end up being shadow banned on YouTube. Just a coincidence? I think not. Because the determination was made is those people in that community were more observant than other people. Were more into or looking for anomalies and changes than the majority of other communities or groups on YouTube. That was YouTube and Google's opinion, not mine. Because I have found the people in that particular community to be some of the most hard-headed motherfuckers I've ever ran across in my life. Willing to spout and regurgitate opinions that have been presented by other people along the way instead of assessing the situation on their own and offering their own opinions. Saying things that no good researcher should ever say. Like one side of the coin is no different than the other, or it's the same old game, and things will never change. If that was the case, and Trump was one of them, things wouldn't be unfolding like they have. And they definitely wouldn't be trying to publicly impeach the president with no real evidence to do so. I don't know exactly what's going on out in space. But I do know that there are changes occurring that are affecting the rest of the solar system and this planet. That's pretty damn obvious. But I have a pretty good bead on what's going on down here on our world, at least wise politically, because I have along the way learned the rules of research. Keep an open mind, assess all the facts that you can find, and come to your own damn conclusion. And as some of you may or may not be aware, I have a different conclusion than a lot of people in that other community. My conclusion is that everything changed in 2016. When someone from outside of the establishment actually got voted into office, upsetting the entire apple cart.
American people also elected Donald Trump to be the president of the United States in the 2016 election, and there's one party that can't seem to get over it. Now, we understand the fact that in 2018 you took the House of Representatives, and we haven't spent our time during your tenure in power trying to remove the Speaker of the House, trying to delegitimize your ability to govern. Frankly, we'd love to govern with you. We'd love to pass USMCA. We'd love to put out a helping hand to our seniors and lower prescription drug prices. It's the will of the people you ignore when you continue down this terrible road of impeachment. Professor Gerhardt, you gave money to Barack Obama, right?
My family did, yes.
4 times?
That sounds about right. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I have a series of unanimous consent requests relating to Professor Feldman's work. The first, Noah Feldman, Trump's wiretap tweets raised risk of impeachment.
The gentleman will suspend. We'll take that time off. Has the gentleman submitted? Have we seen those? The material.
Jerry Nadler, the demonic-looking creature, perched up there like a vulture.
There is consent request later after.
Gabbling Matt Gaetz.
Very well. Thank you,
Gentlemen, may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Feldman wrote articles entitled "Trump's Wiretap Tweets Raise Risk of Impeachment." He then wrote, "Mar-a-Lago ad belongs in impeachment file." And then Mr. Jake Flanagan wrote in Quartz, a Harvard law professor thinks Trump could be impeached over fake news accusations. My question, Professor Feldman, is since you seem to believe that the basis for impeachment is even broader than the basis that my Democratic colleagues have laid forward, do you believe you're outside of the political mainstream on the question of impeachment?
I believe that impeachment is warranted whenever the president abuses his power for personal benefit or to corrupt the democratic process.
Did you write an article entitled "It's Hard to Take Impeachment Seriously Now"?
Yes, I did write that
And in
article.
that article, did you write, hold on, I'm limited on time, sir. Did you write, since the 2018 midterm election, House Democrats have made it painfully clear that discussing impeachment is primarily or even exclusively a tool to weaken President Trump's chances in 2020. Did you write those words?
Until this call on July 25th, I was an impeachment skeptic.
Very well.
Changed my mind, sir, and for
Thank you. I appreciate your testimony. Professor Carlin, you gave $2,000, or you gave $1,000 to Elizabeth Warren, right?
I believe so.
You gave $1,200 to Barack Obama?
I have no reason to question that.
And you gave $2,000 to Hillary Clinton?
That's correct.
Why so much more for Hillary than the other two?
Because I've been giving a lot of money to charity recently because of all of the poor people in the United States.
Well, those aren't the only folks you've been given to. Now, have you ever been on a podcast called Versus Trump?
I think I was on a live panel that the people who ran the podcast called Versus Trump.
On that, do you remember saying the following? Liberals tend to cluster more. Conservatives, especially very conservative people, tend to spread out more, perhaps because they don't even want to be around themselves. Did you say that?
Yes, I did.
Do you understand how that reflects contempt on people who are conservative?
No, what I was talking about there was the natural tendency, if you put the quote in context, the natural tendency of a compactness requirement to favor a party whose voters are more spread out.
Well,
and I do not have
hold on, again, I'm very...
And if you believe that, I need to be chasing you with one of these.
I'm very limited on time, Professor. And so I just have to say, when you talk about how liberals want to be around each other and cluster, and conservatives don't want to be around each other, and so they have to spread out, it makes people, you may not see this from, like the ivory towers of your law school, but it makes actual people in this country feel like, excuse me, you don't get to interrupt me on this time. Now, let me also suggest that when you invoke the president's son's name here, when you try to make a little joke out of referencing Barron Trump, that does not lend credibility to your argument. It makes you look mean. It makes you look like you're attacking someone's family, the minor child of the President of the United States. So let's see if we can get into the facts. To all of the witnesses, if you have personal knowledge of a single material fact in the Schiff report, please raise your hand. And let the record reflect. No personal knowledge of a single fact. And you know what? That continues on the tradition that we saw from Madam Schiff, where Ambassador Taylor could not identify an impeachable offense. Mr. Kent never met with the president. Fiona Hill never heard the president reference anything regarding military aid. Mr. Hale was unaware of any nefarious activity with aid. Colonel Vindman even rejected the new Democrat talking point that bribery was invoked here. Ambassador Volker denied that there was a quid pro quo, and Mr. Morrison said there was nothing wrong on the call. The only direct evidence came from Gordon Sondland, who spoke to the President of the United States, and the President said, I want nothing. No quid pro quo. And you know what? If wiretapping a political opponent's an impeachable offense, I look forward to reading that Inspector General's report, because maybe it's a different president we should be impeaching.
Gentleman's time has expired, Mr. Cicilline.
And he hits right on it. Maybe it is a different president we should be impeaching. Because the Democrats put pressure on a foreign power to gain dirt on a presidential candidate during an election. Used intelligence sources and agencies to confirm false information to start an illegal investigation on a political rival. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what drives this whole thing, among other things.
Mr. Chairman, Professor
That pretty much sums it up right there, doesn't it, for a man?
Example of what can happen if you actually subpoena witnesses and go to court. Then you have an obstruction case. Because a court issues an order, and unless they stay that order by a higher court, you have obstruction. But I can't emphasize this enough, and I'll say it just one more time. If you impeach a president, if you make a high crime and misdemeanor out of going to the courts, it is an abuse of power. It's your abuse of power. You're doing precisely what you're criticizing the president for doing. We have a third branch that deals with conflicts of the other two branches. And what comes out of there and what you do with it is the very definition of legitimacy.
And this is totally illegitimate. Totally against what the framers of the Constitution and the impeachment process intended. Alexander Hamilton actually spoke on this subject, saying that he feared the impeachment process one day would be used as a political weapon against a duly elected president who the other party disagreed with or didn't like. Two things in this case which are completely true. However, in this time, it has a different twist on it. Because the people driving all of this, in this particular case, the Democratic Party and or the deep state, have something to hide. Because they have done every damn thing they've accused the president of doing, and more, and fear retribution and exposure of their treasonous behaviors and crimes.